Hello, dear beloveds. Well, it has been quite an epic day for us here at the Institute with the official launch of the Spiritually Fierce radio show. And like our soft launch late last year, we were plagued by technical difficulties that did not slow us down. So even though we couldn't go live because the server for the radio, the whole radio station was down, we did live stream to the I Am Spiritually Fierce group, another great reason to be in that amazing online community. And that was recorded, and it will be, like all of our Spiritually Fierce radio shows to date, available on the Spiritually Fierce website. The radio show has its own webpage on the Institute website, which I'll share. But I'm not here to talk about that today. However, that conversation this morning that I had with Gemma and with Hannah Wilson, came into the studio to hang out with Gemma. They're neighbours. They both live near Bondi, and that was glorious. And we ended up talking to perhaps an aspect of my vision and the reason why I'm so committed to training women as contemporary priestesses that I haven't talked about a lot. And perhaps that's because it's actually quite emergent right now. It's sort of happening as we speak. In the last year or so, it's been growing in kind of its importance for me. And so I'd already decided I was coming live today to talk about the three archetypes: priestess, mystic, and leader, which is so important to the third level training, so important to me. And to talk a little bit about the way that I train women as channels for the archetypal energy in the third level program, because it might be quite different to how you think about channeling. And of course, everything that I do in the Institute is designed to challenge the expectations of what the new age woo-woo trinkets and superstitions bullshit might be, and to actually elevate what we do to the level of laser-like precision, and to bring, deep research and the science and to the deep understanding to the work that we do, and not just kind of ask you to take it on blind faith. And it's no difference to how I train women as channels as to how I train them as intuition masters. We really look at the research, we look at the history, we look at the ancient wisdom, and we bring all of that together. So I'm going to do a few things on this live today, and one of those is to tell you my very deep and deeply personal, I think it's kind of deep, you might think it's deep or not, but my deeply personal story of connecting to a past life as a high priestess, and how that helps me navigate my work as a principal of the Institute in the world today, and why this work matters so much to me in a way that is probably bigger and deeper than I understood when I first began. And it really gives me so much hope and hopefulness about the vision that I've held in my mind, that it has these ancient, truths to it. So I'm going to share a story with you, and we'll begin there. And then I'm going to connect into the energy of the priestess, the mystic, and the leader, and actually do some channeling with you and for you, and we'll just connect into the energy of the group and share that way, to show you how we do it in the Institute, and why we don't connect into personalities or avatars or particular faces of angels or guides or ascended masters, because we're trying to transcend belief. And what does that mean? I'm going to break all of that down and really ideally connect women to their power, to know themselves as God, rather than to believe that they're connecting to a power outside of themselves, and that's how they get what they need. And that is a paradigm we want to end right now. So I'm just going to share my story with you of meeting Maryam, or Miriam. She's given me both names. Maryam and Miriam are the same name. Maryam is the Arabic version of that name. And why this matters so much to the third level and to the Institute and to me. So I was having a session with Gemma, who's a lead mentor in the Institute in Sydney, when we were still doing the training in Australia for the third level. And Gemma was doing a demonstration of the method, which is what the women in the third level train in. And she was using me as her subject. And she gave me an incredibly powerful session. And part of that session was part of what we do is we go back into a past life event where we identify a fear that is still present in our life now. So that's where the fear began. And because that fear is there, we are not fully expressing ourselves in our optimized self now. And so we go into that past life to clear out the residue and to resolve the, the trauma or the emotional burden that is preventing us from being in our optimized state now. So Gemma identified a past life for me and with me, because we go along, we guide the client along on the journey, in which I was, and I shared this on the radio show this morning, but I want to share it with you now. I was a high priestess in a place that looked very similar to Greece or maybe Cyprus. It had that kind of energy to it, although where it was in time, I don't know, because actually human civilizations are far more multifaceted and innumerable than we are taught in our history books. But it was a long time ago, let's say that. And I was gathering my initiates, the women that I was training as priestesses of that time. And there were many of them, thousands of them, around 5,000 women. And we were gathering together at the temple because I had been advised that we were going to be attacked and that their warring tribes were coming, and that we were in danger and that we needed to disband. And I have this image in my mind so clearly of standing on the top of the steps outside the temple with thousands of women who were all so precious to me, and needing to say to them, you have to go now, you have to leave me, you have to leave the temple, you have to go into hiding to save yourself. And that was a moment in time where we had to bury our wisdom, we had to bury our knowledge as priestesses and representatives of the goddess. And we had to evacuate that place. And I had to leave, and I had to leave my women, my priestesses behind, because I had wisdom and knowledge inside of me that if it was accessed by these warring tribes, could be used against us and could cause great harm. So I had to go into hiding. Now, whether that meant that I left my body and this life or not, I'm not sure what it meant, but it meant that I had to abandon. It felt like I had to abandon these women and leave them to their own vulnerabilities and to the mercy of this warring tribe. And I felt great shame and guilt about having to do that to protect this ancient wisdom. One of the beautiful things that Hannah Wilson of Hand of Hannah shared with me this morning on the radio show is she works with the idea of keepers of the codes, and that she is a keeper of the codes, and many of the women who come into her circles are keepers of the codes, and that I am also that. I do it differently to her. She does it through light language and light codes, and my work is contained differently. But now we're in the age where the keepers of the codes who had to go into hiding are now able to re-emerge because we're waking up again. And because we went into this darkness as a consciousness, those of us who had this information had to hide it. And many of us have had to go into hiding in our previous lifetimes to survive. And now we're in a new time. And so Maryam has, since that life that Gemma so beautifully guided me to and helped me clear my feelings of shame and guilt around abandoning my priestesses, has come to me directly and is now the High Priestess of the Institute, the High Priestess of the third level, and shared more of her story with me so that I can better understand what this holy task that I've been assigned in this lifetime is. And that task that I've been given is to train 5,000 women globally as contemporary priestesses. And I don't know how that's going to happen. I do the third level because it is absolutely the right training for women to train as contemporary priestesses. How that will reach 5,000, I don't yet know, but I'm not worried because this is a holy task. This has been given to me as a sacred vision, and I am the keeper of that vision, and I have no doubt of my capacity to create whatever needs to happen in the world in order for these 5,000 women to wake up. Perhaps some will be directly through the third level, perhaps some will be by association, just by hanging out with me or hanging out with the women that I train, but that ripple by ripple, we will reach the 5,000. And those women that I shared that lifetime with, we can come back together now and we can reconvene, because now is a different time. And it's so powerful that, you know, I've had women say to me, I mean, the third level just, it fills up every intake. I don't have to advertise it. It's divine and holy work. The women find me because I have been charged with this task. And I've had women have dreams they've recounted to me where directly in the dream they've been told, go and find Ricky Jane Adams, you must work with her. And so many situations like this where it feels like that we are just finding each other again, and there's just this absolute sense of purpose. And so many women come into the third level and say, I don't know why I'm here, but I have to be here. And then of course the process is absolutely transformative and changes everything. But that energy of Maryam has been getting stronger with me of late. And since the beginning of the year, I've committed deeply to congruence between my faith and my actions, and stepping into bringing my body, for example, into total alignment so that I can be the purest vessel for this big energy. And for a long time, Kuan Yin has been our high priestess, and now Maryam, because I'm ready, I believe, can step in and has relieved Kuan Yin of her duties, and she will always be our grandmother priestess. But now Maryam and I are in the same kind of space because I'm ready for her. I've stepped up, I've lifted myself, and it started when I began talking about sacred leadership, which is definitely the area that my heart is being drawn towards. And I can understand now why, because I was preparing for Maryam. And for me to talk about sacred leadership, I have to be walking my talk. I have to be stepping up, and I've been doing that more and more. I'll continue doing that all my life. It is my job. But it feels incredibly important to me to share this with you now, because she's so present now, and the purpose of the third level and the purpose of my mission in the world is so clear that by me stepping into my truth and holding that energy, that frequency for the planet, 5,000 women will awaken to their own contemporary priestesshood and take that work out into the world. And we will continue to ripple out into the field to create a paradigm shift for all. And we're not alone. We're not the only group, but we are a group who were forced to go into hiding because of the darkness that came into human consciousness, that we are now waking up from. That dark slumber that we all entered into is now coming to an end. And it feels so incredibly potent, and the energy that's available for this program and for the work that I do, and for all of those who are stepping onto this path with congruence. So thank you for letting me share that story, and for introducing you to Maryam, our high priestess, and for the deep sense of ancient, I'm fulfilling an ancient prophecy. I'm simply a daughter of Maryam who's been given a holy task, and I'm not afraid of that task. And I'm so grateful that these amazing women just keep finding me and keep saying yes, even when they don't know why, because we are simply fulfilling our destiny. And that shouldn't make us feel like it's out of our hands and we have no control, but rather everything that we're doing is congruent and we're moving in the direction of our faith, and that's very cool. So how does Maryam communicate with me, and how do I teach channeling to my third level priestesses? You know, I was trained by Master Channel Angelique Adams, who I am lucky enough to have as my mother. And her journey to becoming a channel was something that I witnessed even from when I was a little child, or a little girl, young girl. Yeah, from about sort of 10 or 11, I think Angelique really opened up to her gift as a channel. And I watched her self-apprentice. She didn't have a teacher who could match her. She had to self-apprentice and lead herself into her own mastery. And she did that so beautifully. And she did that by practice, practice, practice. That's what we have to do, yes. And I got to witness her move from, back this was in the early 90s. The energy of the whole consciousness of the planet was more dense, and there was a lot of shaking and voice changing and twitching and moving and all of the things that we associate with trance channels from that time. But she very quickly could bring herself into stillness and grace. And now if you watch her channel, nothing changes physically. Her voice barely changes, but the power of the vibration, the frequency in the room is phenomenal. So I've been apprenticing as a channel since I was sort of 10 years old, and it's something that I have struggled with because I see so many people who get introduced to channeling go into an ego around it. Like, I've got this power in me, and there's this real kind of ego identification with it. And I understand why in some ways, because when you channel, you are being elevated. Your vibration gets taken up to the level of whatever energy that you're channeling, and it feels incredible. We jokingly call it spiritual crack in the third level, which is not very PC, but it feels like a drug because you're being taken into the truth of what you are. All the fear melts away, and you speak with or for the energy, the archetypal energy. So I really wanted to avoid people going into their ego around this work and becoming overly identified with whatever energy they were bringing through. So whether that had a personality, historical figure, like Jesus or Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene or an ascended master or an archangel. And the most powerful way that I could work out how to do that was to de-identify or take away the ego-identified self, because of course these energies in truth are not these little personalities that we assign to them. This is infinite, unlimited consciousness that temporarily lowers its own vibration so that we can be elevated to its vibration. It has to dumb it down, and even so we're still being taken to such a high level outside of our normal functioning in order to attune to that energy. And by taking away the personality, we're actually stepping out of the ego. Oh my God, I channeled Mary Magdalene, or I channeled Jesus, or whatever. And we actually start having a very pure relationship with what we're doing. We're simply channeling energy, which is what we are doing all the time, by the way. We are always doing this. But this is a very intentional choice to let that energy use you as a voice in the world, because otherwise it's very hard for this energy to communicate in English. It communicates vibrationally all of the time. So I hope that makes sense. Obviously, we go through a very big process to prepare the women to do this, and we study archetypal energy. We work particularly with 13 sacred archetypes in the third level, and we focus on those 13. We don't focus on, is it Kali, is it Lakshmi, is it Jesus, is it Mary, is it this, is it that? We focus on the energy of it. Is it the crone? Is it the mother? Is it the teacher? Is it the warrior? And, you know, we have 13 that we work with as part of the method. And when those energies come through, they come through as a direct support for the client that you're working with. So it's really not about your power. Oh my God, I can channel energy and you can't. You are simply speaking on behalf of the client, for the client, and the client takes that energy, that archetypal energy, home with them. And that's how that works in the method. And I could talk about that for a long time, but I'd love to give you an experience of it. I'll just get my legs crossed, which is, you know, my favorite way to sit when I'm working. And what I want to share with you today is 3 particular archetypes: the priestess, mystic, and leader. And the reason I want to share these with you is, as you know, we're in the recruiting phase for the next round of the third level. And of course, my job is to talk about the third level as much as possible until the interviews close, so that every woman who may not even know that this is what she's looking for can hear me speak about this, and something might light up in her and she recognizes me, not this little version of me, this little Ricky Jane sitting here, but that giant energy of Maryam, and even bigger than that higher purpose that she may not have even known was dormant in her. So my job is to just keep turning up, keep showing up, keep turning my light on. And I do that both on social media and in my meditation, in my consciousness encoding, in my devotional practices, to shine as brightly as I can. And to ask the women who walk this path with me to also let people know, because the choice to be here is already decided. You're simply either delaying it or you're fulfilling it, or whatever you're doing. But if this is your path, then it won't leave you alone. My job is to just keep showing up. So I want to give you an experience of these 3 archetypes today, because these are the core archetypes of the intuitive guide. In the 3rd level, you train to qualify as an intuitive guide. And the 3 archetypes that make up that qualification are priestess, mystic, and leader. One of the beautiful things about working with archetypes, rather than saying, I'm going to channel Kali or I'm going to channel Jesus, is that each of these archetypes are going to be represented by many, many, many faces. So depending on the energy she brings, for example, Kali might represent the fierce mother, the great mother energy, or she might come in as the warrior. She might come in as the priestess. So we're not limiting these incredibly powerful energies to one particular archetype. Archetypes are patterns of energy that repeat over time, and we're all going to move through different phases. We're all going to embody different energies of the archetype at different times. Sometimes we'll be in the maiden energy with that innocence and wonder and hope. Sometimes we're going to be in the crone energy with that deep wisdom, the veils between the worlds very thin. So it's a very different paradigm of understanding energy and the way that we can connect to it. Sometimes the energy will speak directly through me and the students and the women who are qualified in this method, and sometimes they'll speak, will speak on behalf of that energy. So with each of these, I'm going to tune into each of these archetypes. It may be either me speaking for them or as them, and that will become quite clear as we tune in. So I'm just going to tune in and see what information is here for the women who are here listening to me live, and if there's something specifically for us or for those who listen back later, and just let these energies speak. They're like, come on, Ricky. Okay, I'm back. My apologies for that. Although Hannah did say this morning that when big energies are about to come in or are working with her, that the whole internet broke. In fact, we may blame her for the fact that the server went down this morning on the Spiritually Fierce radio show. We won't really blame you. But yes, I'm back. My apologies for that. Thank you so much for those of you who messaged me to let me know. I do love the timing of it. We were just about to tune into these energies, and of course we crapped out the internet. So I'm back. I'm now just using my phone. I hope that's going to mean that we get that connection. And we're going to get into the good stuff here, which is we're going to tune into whatever information that the archetypes of the priestess, mystic, and leader would like to share with us now. So thank you for finding me. I hope this is all working beautifully. Yeah, and we'll just blame the power of the good energy for breaking things. All right. Okay, so what we do when we do this work is we get into congruence. We connect that energy from the heart into the infinite field, and we make sure that the work is coming from that place of absolute pure love, that we are connected to that highest version of love, that agape, and we're transcending our limited human selves, moving from that beautiful space. So let's all just take a moment, those of you who are with me now, placing your hand over your heart, and tuning into that beautiful energy that is available to us all of the time, that we so often don't pay attention to, but never goes away, that infinite field of consciousness that contains all time and all space. Everything exists as one. And of course, we can tune into the energy of anything we want, and we do all the time. We're just doing it unconsciously. When we start to get intentional in our lives, it's quite an amazing thing that happens. When you're ready, opening your eyes, or you can stay there with your hand on your heart, your eyes closed. And I am Maryam. And as you have been speaking of me today, it is the least I can do to show up for you. And I am the High Priestess, and I have played this role in many lifetimes, in many places, beyond your conception of time and space. I am indeed a priestess of higher consciousness. And one day you will truly understand what these words mean, dear sisters. Where I am now is beyond your understanding based on your current physics. But one day when the fabric of time and space is ripped open for you to see through the veil of illusion, you will understand that I am everywhere and I am nowhere. But I've taken on the game of human life many times in many forms, and you will have known me if you are listening to me now. I have what you might call a planetary consciousness. One of many who hold a frequency for all humans, all consciousness to awaken, a planetary consciousness. And yes, at this time I'm seeding some of her consciousness with my own in order to activate another layer of human awakening. So am I here inside of this brain? No, not entirely. And I'm not entirely not inside of this brain here that you're looking at. I just have to say, this is Ricky speaking for a minute. I normally keep my eyes open and I teach my students to keep my eyes open, but what that means right now is I'm looking at myself and I'm weirding out a little bit. So if I close my eyes, just know that I would teach you how to do this with your eyes open. And if my students are watching, they'll be like, why are her eyes closed? So where I am, what I am, is in no way explicable through the understanding of history, of time and space, of physical location, for I am non-local. Accurately, this one should describe her students as priestesses of non-local consciousness. We'll update that, hey? We'll update that. Because you're learning how to delocate yourselves in time and space to become that infinite consciousness that is your birthright. We time traveled. Here we go. Here's some interesting information about the life that we live together, dear sisters. We were time travelers. In particular, we were known for our capacity to bilocate. Do you understand what I mean when I use that term? Bilocate simply means that we could appear as though we were physically in more than one place at a time. Do you understand? Bilocation is a nice game. It might seem particularly impressive to you, but it was simply how we trained our consciousness to behave in accordance with our instruction. We used it as a tool of training for our, what you lovingly call your baby priestesses. This was an introductory program, bilocation. But imagine, please, another time and space entirely where you did not have the distractions that you currently have now. We would enter into the temple, and the temple was our home, and our consciousness was entrained upon it, and we behaved in accordance with only one mission and purpose. How many missions and purpose do you have, dear sisters? How many plans, how many ideas, how many distractions from that single path of training yourself as a priestess of non-local consciousness? So let me remind you how good a job you are doing, because now there is all these bombs of distraction going off all of the time. Once upon a time, and what you crave so dearly and what we did together was we would close the world away and we would go into this place and train in these tools. But we were known as the time travelers, that we could move beyond time and space to rearrange. And on the eve of the great event that this one spoke of, where we realized that things were outside of our control and that there was a destiny we could not circumvent, we had worked tirelessly to try to change history. But it was inevitable that things would go the way they have gone, just as it is inevitable that you will now awaken. So I am not trapped in a physical body at this point in time. because it would do me a disservice to the work I need to do. But this one and many others who are on the planet at this time do the work that I was sent to do. And they do it because we are one consciousness. And it is their mission. And if they don't get it right in this lifetime, they will have another go at it. Time travelers. You do it very slowly in human form, but you are still time travelers. That is still really freakingly gorgeous and new to me to speak with her and through her or as her, so thank you. And for those of you who've been through the third level or currently doing it and haven't met Maryam yet, my new baby priestesses have been introduced to her at their first temple ceremony, and that was a big surprise to me, and it was very blessed, and I'm just getting really clear in this connection, and I think in the alumni and in the other groups we'll meet her more, but she's here now, and that's amazing. Every time she connects there's more information that she's sharing with me, but I love that. We're priestesses of non-local consciousness, sisters. That's it. That's a direct instruction from Maryam. So that is the priestess. Thank you, thank you, thank you for letting me share that with you. That energy is just so blissful and powerful and freaking unfuckwithable, and it's a privilege to get to hold her for a moment inside of me. I love that description. Not in this brain, but partly in this brain. That reminds me of another experience I just had recently I want to share with you. We need more time. We just need to all move in together. This is the job we need to be doing. So I'm now going to connect into the energy of the mystic and see what information is here. And once again, remembering that as we learn to channel in the third level, I may speak directly as the mystic or let the energy of the mystic, I will speak on behalf of her. All right. So we have here an energy that I haven't channeled before, but I am deeply privileged to share with you today. Today is a day of amazing firsts. And this is Teresa of Avila. And it's funny because who popped into my head was Caroline Myss. And I'm like, I'm not channeling her. She's alive and awesome, and we can just go read her books. But Teresa of Avila is the mystic, the great mystic from the Middle Ages who connected with Caroline Myss and changed the course of Caroline Myss's life and the nature of her work from talking about medical intuition to talking about contemporary mysticism. So it's no surprise that the first thing that came into my mind was Caroline, because then I could see who was there, whereas it might have been harder for me to recognize her because she's new to me. I've read her story and I love her work, but I haven't shared directly. So we'll do that now. You do talk a lot, she says. So here we have an interesting, I'm describing what's happening for you because I want this to be a great opportunity for you to see behind the scenes, if you like. Unlike Maryam, who felt like she was inside of me, Teresa is sort of sitting here beside me, like a friend, and she's giving me the option. She could speak through me or with me. It wouldn't really matter. I could speak on her behalf, or she could just speak directly. And she's actually just said she's going to speak directly now because that's easy. But it's all up for grabs. All right. I just have to keep an eye on the time because the nanny leaves at 6 o'clock, and then my children will come in here. I am Teresa. And I am known as a great mystic or the great mystic, depending on who you're listening to. And why was that? Why was that known about me? And why does that matter now? Why has that remained true over time? And what is the medicine of this for you, dear one? What I wrote in my book and what my sister Caroline continues to share in this new mystical renaissance is the truth of devotion to knowing yourself in that intimate union with God, and that above all else is the function and purpose of your life, and that if you place that at the center of your heart, all else will come into being in the fullness of its expression. Yet we live in this age now where it is all the other way around. Do you understand? So that the privilege or the luxury of the soul is left to the very end of the to-do list, but it is putting the cart before the horse and hoping there will be another outcome. The intimacy with God is what you're seeking. When you're seeking intimacy with another, or you're seeking intimacy with your children, or you're seeking intimacy with what is my life's purpose or my job or whatever it is, this sense of union that you are clinging to and aching for is with God. And yet you fight that. And there's this great intellectual cynicism that suggests that it is a naive and foolish pursuit. And you have maybe been made to feel naive in pursuing God, and that is somehow only what you do when all the other things have been attended to. It is the great sadness of our age, this time now, that you have so forsaken that intimacy with your divine nature, with God, to pursue the machinations of emptiness. Begin with this one thing. Begin each day by offering your life to God. Begin each day, even if you are a cynic and you want change. You're a cynic, but you want change. Even if you don't know how that change is going to happen from my words, begin each day with an offer to God. This life, dear God, I offer to you today to do with it what you will. Let me be your hands and feet in the world. And join your mind with God and let the day unfold from that beginning. That one thing is all I ask, that you begin with that prayer that you take into your heart. Let me be your hands and feet in the world. Let my life be your offering today. And let's see what miracles occur from that small change. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was also new and delightful, and I am deeply grateful, and I hope you will listen to her instruction. Okay, last one. And I know who's here for this one, and they've been waiting patiently, and this is a very familiar energy for me, and I'm honored. And here we have the leader. And I am your brother. I am your brother. And some of you know me as Jesus and others as the Christ consciousness, and all of you take me far too seriously. None of my life's work and none of what my legacy is was meant to be taken so seriously as a matter of such heaviness, such burden. If you had known me in the lifetime where I was known as Jesus, you would have known my irreverence and my joy. And if I had had none of that intact, I would not have endured or survived that life. And this day I stand here as an example of the leader, the spiritual revolutionary who could not ignore what was being asked of him and took the path that God invited me to take, sometimes unwillingly, sometimes with great joy and adoration, but always with that certainty. But with certainty comes something. It comes a lightness of being, a joyful lightness of being, a lightness of touch. You see it very rarely in the world these days. We're very serious about the business of spirituality, and we're very serious about the business of leadership and growing our influence and our reach, and we carry it like a heavy burden. But with this lightness of touch that comes with certainty that I am doing God's work in the world, We are unburdened, unshackled. We are fearless and we are free because we know nothing can go wrong. At no time in my life as Jesus could I doubt that, even when it did not look good for me. This lightness of touch comes with cultivating, as Teresa reminds us, a deep devotion, but not through a heavy burden, not through heavy burden. Please do not drive the nails through your own hands. Unshackle yourself and recognize that union with God is bliss, and that it is your right to feel light and unencumbered on this path. And that if you stop trying to figure it all out and to make security from illusion, you would make your own freedom. And you could pursue everything you desire from that place, not from this place of trying to prove something. That is not what leadership is. Your demonstration of that lightness of being, that is leadership. That is the person I follow, and I would follow only those who laugh with that absolute sense of certainty of their purpose. So lighten up. That's the take-home message. Please get lighter about this path, because the heavy energy is not what we were designed to carry within our body, within our being, and that is why we get sick and we get old and we die. It is not the way it is meant to be. It's just this dead weight that we place upon ourselves. When God has entered into you, you will feel none of that heaviness. You will feel only the lightness of the truth that you trust God, that you trust your path. I am a joyful leader. I am not here to make you feel heaviness, but I want to invite you into the bliss that comes with placing your burdens at my feet and letting me transmute them. Give your life over to me. Give your life over to this purpose, and let's see what happens there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, dear ones, and thank you for letting me demonstrate to you what channeling is inside of my institute. And even though each one of those archetypal energies of the priestess, mystic, and leader gave us an avatar or an identity, the primary focus is connecting into that archetypal energy and then letting them just show us, are we going to speak with you or as you? And that takes just that subtle shift, takes all that heavy, burdensome energy out of it, and it takes the ego identified self out of it. And for me, it's turned teaching channeling to my third level priestesses from something that I often felt quite uncomfortable with, because I didn't feel like I was doing it right, to now something that I joyfully hand to them, because it's such a beautiful feeling to let your vibration be elevated to that frequency. And it is a gift, and it's part of the gift of who and what we are. Now, I do need to go because my nanny is going to go and my kids will be unattended, and I need to be a good mama, because that is what the priestess does. The priestess is in the world. She's doing the jobs. She's making the babies. She's making the dinner. Not me, not often. Maybe tonight I will have to make the dinner. But I'm so grateful for you showing up, and thank you. Sorry for the tech disruption. I'm just claiming that it's great big power just caused my internet to crash, because it wasn't just me, because I could hear my son yelling at Kim, going, where's the internet? So it was obviously house-wide, and it was obviously because of the amazing energy that we all created together. And I'm just so grateful to get to share this with you. And of course, I am here because I want anybody who is ready for the third level to know that the interviews are now open. I'm not going to hide that. I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do everything I can, because my job is to let those 5,000 women find me. And I have to be really clear and transparent and say, if you want to hang out with me, now is the time to book your interview. And this program will bring you closer to everything that you didn't even necessarily know was the purpose of your life, and so much more. It is my privilege to serve you, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Bye.